Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
School is back, and Dick's Sporting Goods has what you need to win your year. We've got everything from cleats to Sambas, dunks, and more. Plus, the hottest looks from Nike, Jordan, and Adidas. Find your first day fits in-store or online at dicks.com.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the all-new Prologue EV, there's a lot that can impress you about it. There's the class-leading passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest Anfield Index Under Pressure podcast. My name's Dan Kennett, and back with me for the first win of the Arne Slot season, or Arne Slot era, and the new season. I've got the new team. Well, at least for the foreseeable future until Bart's is back with us. But I've got Si. Evening, Si.
Yeah, good start of the season and a win, eh?
Yeah, fun, I think. Well, half the game was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and fresh from watching Brentford versus... Who was it? Brentford versus...
Crystal Palace
for the Times. I've got Times sports journalist Hamzah Khalid-Lunit.
Hello.
Evening, Hamzah.
Hello, good to be back. Very excited for the new season. Plenty to talk about.
Absolutely. Maybe you can give us a skinny on some of your PGL MOL briefing later on if we're going short at the end of the pod. Mm-hmm. Excellent. That's one of the perks of being a mainstream journalist, I think. Right, anyway, we are here to talk about Ipswich 0, Liverpool 2, a winning start for Arne. And as always, Si, we're not going to change the format so much. We are just going to straight into those lineups and that game plan. So this is new, Si. New lineups, potential new game plans to discuss. We can't just simply say same as the same old.
No, I was. You guys know, I didn't see the game live. I began the season working as ever, but it was on my phone. And while I was presenting, I was looking down at my phone to see the lineups, and it's quite surprising, isn't it? Like everybody kind of looked at the preseason, and we're calling who's good, who's playing well. Suddenly, reading lots into team selections of CJ was going to be playing because he's going to be the 6. Look how amazing Harvey's been. Bradley's played really well. Simi's played all the time. And the only player that actually retained his position rather than the big boy just come straight in was Quansah, which was probably the biggest possible surprise. I don't know. I felt that Konate was coming in, didn't you?
Maybe. He's a French international. He's really quiet, so maybe this is the man in possession thing, going over from last season.
Yeah, maybe, because he did finish the season with the role for the last 6 games, didn't he?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe there's a little bit of that. But I was just excited to see how it rolled out. The Gravenberg seems to have taken one of the 2 central midfielder roles for the last 2 preseason games. Since the big boys came in, it looks like we're having some kind of... I think the early championship Manager or Football Manager tactic boards work really well in this, where you have a position and then an arrow next to it. And our right side 8 has now got an arrow leading forwards and then direct to the right behind Mo. And our left-sided arrow 8 drops deeper and then has an arrow out to the left. And whilst the 6, it's not. I don't think any of them are playing the 6, but the slightly deeper of them was Grav, and his role is to make himself available constantly for the centre backs to play for, and then to cover for Trent if he's popping out, or unless Szobo's doing it. So I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah. And Hamzah, your thoughts on the lineup? First selection for Arne?
I guess the real sort of interesting bit was Gravenberch as 6. I guess we'll get into this later, but if you compare him to Endo, there's a very different style in the way that they're very different stylistically. Gravenberch able to receive in the turn, play forward, are very comfortable at doing that sort of thing. Endo very much more a destructive, high tackle, turnover machine. And given what we saw of Gravenberch last season, where we sort of identified that he's not what you'd call a dual machine, it's definitely one. He's a person to now watch to see how he develops as a number 6 for as long as he plays there, because like as we saw last season, that defensive side is that's probably not his game. But whether he can bring that is a different question, and obviously you hope that he can. So, like for example, he ended up with 3 tackles and interceptions, which is fine. Last season, he had a number of games with less than that. Quite a few games with 0. I'm just looking very quickly. I'm eyeballing it. It's around like 8-0, maybe similar sort of numbers with 1 combined tackle interception.
Yeah.
4-5 with 2, and then I think there's just 5 matches where he had more than 3 combined tackle interceptions in a match.
Yeah.
So yeah, a few of those. I'm just looking at the minutes played in those numbers I cited earlier. So a few of those 0s are with matches where he didn't start. But yeah, he's the one to watch, I guess. Otherwise, in terms
so
of
what you're saying though, really, is it's a different skill set. That's what you really,
yeah. But yeah, otherwise in terms of the team, front 3 as expected. McAllister, Szoboszlai as expected. But
what do you think of the roles of the front 3? Hamzah, how we've seen pre-season, now we've seen the first match. What are you seeing as the roles of the front 3 across the 3?
I think that they're still trying to let Diaz be a progressor in terms of dribbling and moving the ball towards goal
And carrying.
Salah and Jota, and again, this is a theme of the match. They're important in winning duels and being able to beat their opponents either in the air to long balls, on second balls, and using their abilities to set the midfielder and then running in behind. Diaz can do that. Diaz does do that as well, but he's more of a sort of outlet to move up the field very quickly. Whereas Salah, there's a clear instruction for him to get inside the box. Well, there's clear impetus for him to get inside the box. Likewise, Jota as well. So a few tweaks there, and then again, I guess we'll get to this soon. But the way that the team played without possession seemed to be like 4-2-4, and Ipswich mirrored that as well, and that changed during the match for them, and it caused us a few problems in the first half as well. But yeah, so a few different things there in terms of on ball and off ball stuff.
So, and I guess a similar question to you about roles. How did you see the roles across the defence, particularly the left back role versus the right back role?
The right back tucked in sometimes, and the left back never did. In possession, without possession, what the left back was very narrow, and Trent, he and Szobo worked in tandem. That's how I felt it. That we still very much got the remnants of maybe a slightly more efficient version, but the remnants of what happened last season of Trent's raiding into midfield. So, But as soon as he went off, the Connor went out wide. So I think it's more a vehicle of Trent rather than saying our right back and our left back.
Okay.
They just have different roles.
Yeah. My biggest surprise, and I was a bit sad for Costas, was Andy Robertson coming straight back in, because I thought Costas had played really well in pre-season. I think Robertson, to me, clearly didn't look fully fit, but it's yet again there's a straight choice between the two of them, and it's always Andy Robbo. So it's in that way, it's like meet the new boss, same as the old boss. I did feel a bit for Jones as well, specifically as he started the season in possession. I thought they were the two calls that I was most surprised by. Jones and Costas missing out. But any thoughts on that side?
I think everybody's aware of my allegiances to Curtis Jones.
Yes.
I think that he has a very specific strategy in mind with how we build. I think when Mac is playing in midfield, that he has all of the skills that Curtis has.
Yeah.
Just as better at it.
Yeah.
And I think Grav is more incisive, and I think it was key to 3 or 4 different moments in the game how we transition really quickly, or not necessarily transition. How we, from a build-up play, how we injected 20 yards. I think nobody else in the team would have done that. Maybe Szobo. Szobo has that. Szobo has everything. But the quick, the receiving of the ball under pressure in all directions, Grav can keep hold of the ball if he wants, like CJ. But what CJ doesn't do is then turn and sprint that way with the ball as fast as he can.
Do you think Jones's role will continue to be that second midfielder like it was under Jurgen, and particularly as the rotation option for McAllister?
Yeah.
Okay.
That'll be my figure. I think he probably can fill in if he needs to in this new version of the 6 that Grav is playing. I enjoyed Grav there, and to point out that when we bought Grav, I thought that's where he was coming to play. I was wrong, but that's what I thought.
Yeah. And Costas versus Robbo?
I like Costas. I feel like he's a bit unlucky, but my guess is he's being treated like a team cheerleader for a reason. So if both managers are treated in this way, there's something he's missing.
Okay, cool. We're just going to go on to the match summary. We don't have... The doc has produced the stats pack, which is not published in a way we can get it and share with you all in the way yet. I don't think the internet in Mauritius is as good as it is in the UK. But there's other plus sides to being in Mauritius, I guess. But
he's in Melbourne.
Oh, is it? It was in Brisbane. Brisbane, yeah. Yes, but at the moment he is mobile at the moment, so he's not in a home base or anywhere. But yes, we do have the stats pack. Possession was 59-41 for us. Total shots was 18-7, but I'm going to give you the splits in a minute. The on-target shots was 5-2. Really significant on the big chances. It was 6, which is nice for us, but 0 for Ipswich. Huge change straight away. That is a big stat that we need to see repeated a lot more this season. XG was 2.7 to 0.5, and XG on target 2.4 to 0.3. So I'm just going to give you those splits though by half. And in the first half, the shots was Ipswich 4, Liverpool 3, with an XG of 0.3 to 0.1. Just 0.1 for us, with 0 on target. And then second half was 15 shots to 3 in our favour, 5 shots on target to 0, and 2.6 to 0.1 in XG. So, there's clearly the old cliche game of two halves here that we're gonna get into. We're going to try some stories, the narratives about. So, Hamzah, I'm going to start with you on the opening period to the match, and I put it to you that I didn't think we were terrible in the first half, but also we had no end product, and not much really happened. How did you see the patterns at play? I mean, how can you play for 45 minutes and not much really happens?
At BlueNile.com, you can find endless ways to make your moments sparkle. From classic and timeless jewelry gifts to creating the custom engagement ring of her dreams, all at prices you won't find at a traditional jeweler. And right now, you can save up to 40% on fine jewelry and 25% on engagement ring settings during the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale, going on now. Go to BlueNile.com to shop the Blue Nile Anniversary Sale and save up to 40%. That's BlueNile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. Ha. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Yeah, it was interesting. There's a really... when I was watching it today being the Tuesday, there was a real lull, I think, from the 15th minute to around the 30th. Literally nothing happened. But the opening period, in terms of first 10, 15, Ipswich had a really good go. They played with a 4-2-4. A lot of teams use the 4-2-4 out of possession shape for a number of reasons. It sounds a bit risky, right? You're leaving two players in midfield when I say 4-2-4, but because you've got two centre forwards, effectively, two defensive midfielders and the centre backs, you've got a nice spine that you're covering the middle of the pitch with, and the wingers are meant to be narrow, so they're meant to dissuade passes infield. So you're actually really reinforcing the middle. You're stopping the opponents from playing there. Teams like Arsenal use it, City have used it a bit, Chelsea used it. Lots of teams use it now, and sometimes they change how they use it by going man to man as well. So they did this, and Liverpool were setting up quite narrow. They wanted to play through the middle. That's how Liverpool like to play. Now they want to open up spaces infield and then exchange and then play through the middle, break quickly forward after drawing the opponents forward. They noticed that they use Robertson as a bit of a trigger. So when he received, they try and squeeze him against the touchline. Passes up the touchline were often purely vertical, which are much easier to defend. That was a bit of a problem in the first half. It's a bit of a problem that Quansah encountered as well. So he when he was being pressed, he was quite readily allowing them to move, push him backwards and pass to Alisson. And when he did pass forwards, often those passes were vertical rather than diagonal. And a diagonal pass just means that the recipient is able to move a bit better. You can either roll one way or the other, and you control it. And when you do control it, you've got, again, you can take a different direction with it. When it's a purely vertical pass or a very vertical pass, you've got to trap it first. It defends at your back, and they're immediately pushing you backwards towards your own goal. So that was one small problem we encountered. The players felt squeezed, small pitch as well. So when they went 4-2-4 and began to press us, we struggled there. And okay, so usually you hear that sort of thing, you go, okay, that sounds good, because they're pressing us. They've left 4 against 3 at the back. We've got players that are quick, that are strong. We should be using the long balls to get either in behind or to work off Salah, Jota, who are both great in the air and receiving the ball, and Diaz as well, who can sort of contest those duels, at least quite well on the ground at least. But we weren't able to work the second balls properly, and we weren't winning those duels as we would have liked. In the second half, we did actually, Mark Stats tweeted out just half an hour ago or something, that Liverpool's long ball rate didn't actually change that much from the first half to the second. The efficiency of them did increase, but the rate didn't actually change too much.
Interesting.
So it was more about winning those contests and winning the second balls and being slightly better positioned, and adjusting how narrow Liverpool were, because the defensive line was quite tight. That meant if, for example, Robertson on the left received the ball, his natural angle into the midfielder, and this was Gravenberch most of the time in the first half, it changed a bit slightly in the second as McAllister came a bit deeper. It was just harder to get around that attacking four that Ipswich had and pass into Gravenberch, because Robertson was so narrow. You even saw that weird thing where he ran around Van Dijk's back. Whereas if you positioned a bit closer to the touchline, you don't have to be all the way on the touchline. You're then challenging those. Well, there's two things going on. You've got a better angle into the centre midfielder, and if the centre backs are further apart, the two strikers that are in that attacking four then also have to spread out. And if they spread out, that means there's more space available to get the ball into the number six. Likewise for the fullbacks to do the same sort of thing. So a few things going on there that weren't quite right. So
there was still the triangles available to us, but they were too close. The triangles were too small. That there needs to be bigger. Yeah,
So, they were very squeezed. Yeah, I think it's a smaller pitch, and I think Ipswich closed the space down well. But Liverpool also weren't snappy enough. You've got to be quick, and you've got to make the angles quickly as well. If you don't do that, it becomes very hard to then find the space after the first pass, and you need to move the ball side to side as well. That's something they did quite well in the second half, but not as well.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed from Doc's stats back, I noticed is in the first half, Jota doesn't have any connections with anybody, and a connection is simply four or more passes. Gravenberch doesn't have any connections with Szoboszlai or Trent. Szoboszlai doesn't have any connections with Salah. It was just a bit meh. What did you think of that first half, and what did you pinpoint as the issues?
I think there were a couple of big tactical issues, but one thing to point out, the change, there was lots of talk about duels and the Slot through Quansah under the bus. I think weird. It's unfair of us to speak how we spoke about Klopp over what he did to Naby at Real Madrid without saying similarly about judging Slot in a similar way about how he treated Quansah. I think it was brutal. He's a kid, and ripping him at half time is slightly better than publicly taking him off at 43, which is Klopp did to Naby at Real Madrid, which is a slightly bigger deal, but it's still a big deal. That was a slapping of the butt. I don't think he was that bad. I even give it worked in the end, but it was a significant change that is going to damage that kid's psyche or test it slightly.
Do you think do you think with the tactical change it could have worked in the second half with Quansah, with the relevant the tweaks we made?
Yeah, I don't think Canati played a big role in it. I tell you what, one of the big things, right, that I noticed was that Quansah received 24 passes. One of them wasn't backwards from receiving the pass. Canate received 22 passes. 17 of them were forward towards it. It's a different role. He was moving in a different way to receive the ball and be more incisive. So we set up around them differently. I think the biggest thing, right? We're gonna talk all the time about who's better. Like Canate won one duel more than Quansah. That's it. His percentages look different, but that's largely it.
The midfield two in the first half only won 3 out of 13 between them, McAllister and
I think that was largely it.
And Gravenberch, yeah.
I think the biggest difference between Canate and Quansah was that when Canate won his duels, won his aerials, we picked up the second ball, and that's not what happened in the first half. And I don't know if that's Quansah's direction, if he was just clearing the ball rather than putting it down to somebody, or I'm not entirely sure. But I think we did other things differently. But the single biggest difference was that Ipswich got tired and couldn't press. They were man marking, and the moment they no longer could press, they were done, because they did the thing that we talk about all the time when we're in Champions League. When we're playing against a champion from a smaller league, they don't know how to defend. They don't set up to not win games. And Ipswich were trying to beat us. And we are phenomenal at beating rubbish attacking teams.
I mean, that was the thing that I didn't get. But, they were going man to man over the pitch. And I was thinking, we used to love playing man for man teams, and we just shred them, but we couldn't do that in the first half. That's anyway.
Well, it's the synchronicity was off. That's all. That Jermaine Genius, who I hate and spouse absolute garbage, said one positive thing. But it wasn't positive, but said one true thing, is that when you're working within a new system, and if you think about it, we've heard so much about meetings and individual meetings, embedding the new tactics and system, right? But until it's unconscious, your decision making, it's conscious and takes half a second.
Yeah.
If it takes half a second, you're just a little bit late to get past, to react to whoever's man marking. And they're all big athletic. They're a very athletic team, and they're really good at man marking. And it just takes a while for you to start creating patterns and know where you're going to pass the ball and know which direction you're going to be receiving the ball in before it happens. And we'll get better and better and better at that as the season goes on. And we just needed them to get a little bit tired so they couldn't press and they couldn't cover. It wasn't just the pressing. It was the angle which they're pressing. And they were covering the second man. They were covering the ball out. And once that stopped, we were allowed to build a little triangle at the back. We kept moving the ball backwards. Here's one stat for you that after watching, because I watched retrospectively, that I saw everybody last night talking about Gary Neville and Caro done a little piece, and they were arguing about a moment where Robbo went in behind Virgil, right? 7 times during the game that we made 3 consecutive backward passes. They moved forward, then we hit it long and we got behind them. And on 7 times we got in behind them, and that long pass in behind into one of our forwards that made a run, that came about from a successive backward pass as they were squeezing really aggressively up the pitch. So we were waiting for their defence to push out at the same time as one of our strikers had spun. Then we were sprung. So it was a deliberate it was deliberate strategy to get around, to bypass their press, and it just took a little bit of a delay in their legs fatigue for us to get in. So
I kind of agree with what you're saying. I think the only thing I would add is that I don't think anybody in our team particularly played well in the first half, other than Mo Salah, and which we'll come on to the more positive stuff in a minute. I don't think we played that well collectively, but there were a couple of moments that, even if you just analyse the small amount of stuff that did happen. So the first one was Jacob Greaves, very good aerial player, got they're probably Ipswich's best chance of the half, to be honest, from a corner. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on the new setup side with Verge mid zone and Quansah back zone. Do you think that's the best use of Verge on defensive set plays?
100%. I've mentioned this many times whenever we've talked about set piece.
Why is Verge back zone? Yeah.
Never understood why he's wasted the back zone.
Okay, so that's now switched, but this one went over Verge, and Greaves basically sort of strong-armed Quansah when the ball was in flight coming out, got in front of him, and Quansah couldn't jump, presumably because he was off balance. But Greaves was it wasn't a clear header, was it? It was. I thought it was one small black mark against Quansah, and the other one was when he got skinned by Delap on the touchline, which was a bit more egregious, to be honest.
Yes.
But they were the only two. I didn't think Quansah was great with the ball at his feet, but like you said, it was maybe the nature of the passes he was receiving. But I felt this a few times last season as well, so I just don't know if that's his game. I just don't know. He's not Verge, but who is? But I just don't know if that's his game, to be in the back line receiving the ball like that. But
I'm with you, Hamzah. What do you think? You see more football than I do. I never thought he was if he didn't play for Liverpool's kids, I don't think we would buy him. I think
because he's academy and he's developed.
Yeah. I think he rose to a level of acclaim that his performances didn't justify because he was a child. If he was 26 putting those performances in, I don't know if he is talked about the way he is. And let me preface this with, any kid that gets into a first team of any sport is always talked about like they're on a trajectory to something else. And so, I don't believe that's the case. Before
I hand over to you, Hamzah, the only thing I would say is I thought up until, say, February last season, I thought his performance level defensively was excellent. So I thought it was genuinely really good. And I think he tailed off a bit towards the end of the season. But I was talking more specifically on the ball was my little concerns. Hamzah? Quansah?
I don't, to the point of whether we would buy him, I don't think many clubs buy 21-year-olds or 20-year-old centre-backs generally because they want to see how they... Because these centre-backs, you usually get them a bit later, 24, because you get more longevity out of centre-backs generally, but you also need to see them develop physiologically, and there aren't that many young centre-backs in that 18 to 21 period that you see in Premier League football. So I think that he is competing. And again, with any young player, I think it's entirely normal to have peaks and troughs, have slightly extreme periods of good form and bad form as well. That he has been comfortable at international under 21 level. I've seen him there. Doesn't add too much. That's good. That he's been able to do what he did last season, I think counts far more. And I agree with you, Dan, in that the performance level that he showed for that period was very promising. And I think I'm a bit more bullish on him just because you generally don't see that many young centre-backs. Well, I don't think if Liverpool would have moved for him, but I think what they would have done is watched him let's say he was at a different club, either in England or abroad. I think the performances that he put in last season would have definitely sort of had them interested, and they would have kept tabs on him and seen how he did this season. They just would have monitored him very closely, and ideally they would have wanted to monitor him in a top 5 league or a league like this one. It just so happens, rather than seeing how he progresses at Brighton, for example, we've got him ourselves, so we'll see how he works with us. I think there's a lot of development too. There's a lot of possible development that can happen, and I think it's likely that he will make a lot of development too. So there's a lot of unknown moment with him, so I wouldn't be too worried. But as to Simon's point earlier about whether it will be a psychological knock being subbed, yeah, I guess. How he responds to that is...
So, Hamzah, before we go on to the good stuff, right, any thoughts on the new defensive set-piece setup? You like it as well?
Yes. I'll be completely honest. When I was watching, I was watching on triple speed today, and I was just tactical patterns rather than set-piece patterns, so I haven't studied set-pieces too close to watch them. But I'll watch them back, and I'll come back to you next week or the week after.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if we do end up moving for a 22-year-old centre-back who happens to be a very tall, play for a club in the city, and his name rhymes with Barrett Janthwaite. Anyway, we shall see. That would be interesting. Right. So, one player potentially who was excused in the first half for a really good level of performance was Mohamed Salah, And right from the first minute of the game, he was like the Duracell bunny. This was like rolling back the years, wasn't it, for Mo?
Yeah, and I want to point out, if you look at his average position, that it's rolling back the years and that he wasn't... Even though he started out it looks like we have a base 4-2-3-1. We probably end up in that formation about 5% of the game, but that's theoretically the structure of the team. So he's actually in, but he's deeper than the forward. But he is constantly attacking off the back of the fullback, inside, outside the back of the fullback. He was really high, like he was for the first 5 years at Liverpool, before he gradually dropped, before Mane decided he was going to be the striker, and we gradually dropped deeper and deeper. Last year, he was basically playing in front of the right back. and very often playing the nearest position to right back because Trent was never there. And he was playing much more of a provider. So last season, in almost all the games, he had the most passes into the box. And he always had the most progressive meters of any of our forwards. And it wasn't close combined, but always the most progressive passing meters. And that wasn't the case. He was playing really high up the pitch. He had 10 progressive receptions, which so the ball's got to be past 10 meters. It's got to be higher up pitch, and that's not what he was doing last season. He was playing much deeper and interacting, feeding the forwards. His top 4 interactions in this game, take away the last 20 minutes, because I actually think there were 3 phases of this game. Once we were ahead, game changed completely.
Yeah.
But before that, the up until we scored, his biggest connection was with Virgil. And wow. His top 4 connections are not forwards. And last season, they were always forwards. So in this game, he was the highest. He wasn't the creative force getting us into the box. He was playing up to the box and receiving the ball by the box. And so no wonder he looked like the player 5 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever, because he was playing in that position.
Hey guys, it's Eddie Gibbs from Anfield Index here. I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I'm sorry to call time on the show before it ends. In the current climate, it's tougher than ever before to offer podcasts for free. At Anfield Index, we produce over 75 free shows every month, which I'm confident is unparalleled in the LFC sphere. Whilst we'd love to offer everything for free, the production costs now make this impossible. That said, we don't want to follow the model of other channels and lock all of our content behind a paywall. So what we've decided to do is to continue offering every show for free, but cut that offering to 30 minutes on our longer shows. So to get all of our shows in full and enjoy the best of everything we have to offer, we really hope you'll consider supporting the channel and signing up at AnfieldIndexPro.com. For about the price of 1 cup of coffee, you'll get every podcast in full with 0 ads. You'll also get access to our LFC VIP community, where you can enjoy live podcasts, engage with our podcasters, and chat with other Reds in real time. So that website again, AnfieldIndexPro.com. Join today.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.